Hello, everyone. If we haven't met before, I'm Alex Norman. I'm the co-founder of TechTO. I'm an operator with 2 exits. I've done professional services, and I'm an active investor as the head of Canada for AngelList and a partner at N49P. We host Founders and Funding to help demystify the fundraising process and the relationship between investors and founders. Today, I'm excited to host a conversation between Brandon Wales and Mike Bignold. We're going to get to the conversation in a minute and hear a fascinating story. But if you haven't been with us before, there's a couple things you can do. On the side there, if you haven't found it yet, there's a chat. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from tonight. There's also emojis. They can blast your emotions to the world as we have the conversation. Use a virtual applause to give feedback to the speakers. And then after, stay for the networking. After the main event, we get to know other community members and we can network. Finally, please share your insights on social media using the hashtag TechTO. Let's get started. Please welcome Brandon and Mike to the stage.
Nice to be here.
It's great to have you guys. We're representing 3 different time zones, if I'm correct today. So maybe Mike, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're coming from and a bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, yeah, my name is Mike. I'm the CEO and founder of CostCertified. I'm out in Calgary, and thanks for having us.
It's my pleasure. Brandon.
I'm Brendan Wales. I'm one of the co-founders of Fuse, an early stage venture capital firm based in Seattle. Prior to this, I spent 9 years at a venture capital firm called Headline, based in the Bay Area.
Cool. Maybe for people that don't know both of you and your backgrounds, Mike, can you tell us a bit about what CostCertified does and how you came up with the idea?
Sure. The question we asked ourselves is, why can't you sell a construction project like a home renovation or a new house on Shopify or Amazon? And the reality is that those platforms don't give the tools required to manage the complexity of a construction project. So we built the missing link, which is like a quoting engine that allows you to pre-configure the rules around the pricing for a construction project, which basically allows the contractor to provide the consumer with a real-time shopping experience at the point of sale. So, you could choose to upgrade your countertop from laminate to quartz, or your upgrade to a hardwood floor, and the homeowner can see the difference in price in real time. And it also gives us a lot of neat capabilities when it comes to de-risking the construction workflow, like for payments and financing. So that's where that's CostCertified as a whole. We built it. I built it basically to scratch my own itch with my contracting company that I had before. So I built this for myself to provide my customers with a better experience and to help me manage my project managers and my salespeople.
Great. Love that background. Likewise, Brandon, I'd love to hear a bit about your background, how you got into VC, and what does Fuse look at investing in?
Yeah, so Fuse, we're about 1.5 years old. We raised just under $200 million to back the best technology businesses globally, but with a focus on the Pacific Northwest. And our whole business is about backing people like Mike who build products that customers love and enjoy. And so the focus at the end of the day is really around that customer experience and providing a delightful one to the end users of the products. I thought I would be in Mike's shoes when I started my career. I moved to the Bay Area when I was 23, worked at a venture-backed startup, and had sort of a jack of all trades at this business, but then fell into a venture capital firm called Headline when I was 25 and fell in love with the business. And now here I am running a firm with 2 really good friends of mine and having a blast.
So you're based in Seattle, Mike's based in Calgary. How did you guys meet, and how does investment come together? Mike, maybe you can tell from your path to funding. I know you stopped in YC, so tell us, based in Calgary, how did you go about building the company? What do you think about funding, and then how did you meet Brandon?
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty good story. Calgary is Calgary. It's one of the most productive cities in the world, one of the richest cities in the world by GDP per capita. But most deals are done in oak panel clubs, and the median CEO age is probably 55, 60 maybe. So the tech scene here is, not that healthy yet. Hopefully that'll change. But around here, you go out looking for investment, and investors typically want half your company, and if they want to invest at all, and there's a lot of sharks in the water here. And we were in a little incubator program here, and we had people tell us, let's bring them down to earth. They're not being realistic. We told them what we wanted to raise. We told them what we wanted to do. We gave them half the vision. Actually, we were too afraid to give them the whole vision because they just couldn't see that far. They said, go to Silicon Valley. So
before you do that, can you just double click on what that experience was like? So you're in Calgary, you
Mhm.
want to raise money, you have this big vision. What was the amount you were trying to raise at that point, and what was the vision you were pitching?
Well, the vision we were pitching was sort of half the vision. So it was still like this, because we were getting told like, oh, you guys need to be realistic, come down to earth. And they basically all got together and they said, oh, we got to, cut these guys down to size. That actually happened. And so we sort of got laughed at. Someone has told us 0% chance. Like, there's very few things in the universe with a 0% probability. Almost everything is non-zero probability, but we were zero.
Great.
So that's what we heard. And the big vision we had, was that we were going to raise $2 million at a $15 million valuation, which is just now seems so cheap. And that's what we got laughed at. And they said, well, if you want that, you'll have to go to Silicon Valley. So we packed our bags, spent our last $1,500 on a trip to down to the Bay Area. We went to this little prop tech conference, knew nobody, missed the deadline to pitch. So we weren't able to pitch. I remember sitting in the rental car outside the hotel. By the way, we rented a motel for like $500 a night and the light was flickering. It was like an episode of Saw. We literally spent our last dollars on this trip. And we're sitting in the car thinking, what do we do now? Okay, let's call Sand Hill Road. So we just started calling. And this was still just pre-COVID, but still they're like, do not come to the office. We do not want to see you. That was how it started. But we met, a couple really key people that got us in with our first investor, and helped us get into YC, and everything from there is sort of history.
So Brandon, how'd you find Mike, and what appealed to you about the company? So did you meet them in YC? Did you hear about them before? Like, love to know how they got on your radar.
They were about halfway through Y Combinator, and I was introduced to Mike from Ilya Golubovich at I2BF, who's this prolific early stage investor who does a lot of vertical software applications. And I had worked with him on an investment in a business called Shop Monkey, which does vertical software for the auto repair category, and had a great experience with him. He connected me with Mike. And I had bought a house up here when I had moved up from the Bay Area about 8 months ago, and I had to update it because it's fairly old and not even like a complex job, and actually pretty small. And I was having this terrible experience. I mean, I couldn't get a quote every time I wanted to, even if I got an estimate and then I wanted to change a component of it. The person it would take them a week to get back to me with, a quote, because they're doing it by hand or via Excel. And so when Mike said, hey, look, that power can be in your hands and all the dependencies around labor and costs are built into the product, I fell absolutely in love. And then, as we got to know Mike and Dave, the vision is just so big. Not only is it about providing a great customer experience for the general contractor and the end user, but there's all these commerce enablement products that can be, that could be in play here too. And so the TAM is just so large, and fell in love. And, Mike, Dave, and I, we came to a deal, I don't know, a few weeks right before demo day, and really excited about it.
So Mike, I'd love to hear from your perspective, what attracted you to Brandon, what you were looking for in a deal, especially if you did something before demo day. It's like one of those written rules that gets broken all the time, that you're not supposed to raise before demo day. But what encouraged you? What did you know about Brandon and Fuse that said, this is the company this is the fund I want to work with?
Yeah, good question. Coming in even before demo day, long before demo day, the inbound investor requests was just a flood. Like, it was a full-time job, even just responding to these emails. It's so the market was kind of crazy as well, and it's still crazy. Inflation is high. The money is flowing, and so they really, investors are right now really, really pursuing good companies. And being in YC, it's an automatic signal, and you just get flooded. So we had a lot of inbound requests, and the money became like a commodity for us. So basically, the money was easy to get if we wanted it. But for us at that point, we wanted to make sure that we were getting in with the right partner, because we knew we could get the money, but how do we get the right people? And we have a really good slate of investors. Like our investors right now, if you add them all up, it's like an incredible list. We're really, really happy about it. And then if we're going to lock ourselves in, in a structured priced round, we wanted to really make sure that we were making the right choice. And yeah, they came in before demo day, which by the way is really smart, because they're a startup, VC in a lot of ways. And I think that really helped them understand our perspective. And so they had really founder friendly terms. And that was really, really important to us at this stage, because we're still early. We still have lots of products we want to build. And it was really the founder friendliness of their terms that attracted us to them. And then we just really were on the same page from the beginning. And we really just trusted Brendan, and we really liked him and the whole team. They're just really awesome. So and we could just tell that they're going to be like the next big VC. And so we wanted to be a part of that.
And Brennan, on the flip side is, when you were doing the due diligence, I imagine there's like 200 YC companies a batch. So beyond going through a renovation, what else gave you confidence that this was the right partner or the right company to invest in?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately about the product, right? We spent most of the time, on the product. I mean, I think on the first call, Mike, it was probably 45 minutes. We're just on product. And so fell in love with that. And then the big thing that I look for with small business software is logo growth, right? It's not about some ARR scale. It's about, what is the quantity of new logos that you're adding month over month? And to me, the business could be at a million ARR or $200,000 in ARR. It doesn't really matter. It's about what's the total quantity and how is that ramping. And that was going really, really well. And so that was showing this customer love. And that velocity of adding new logos, like that also helps validate market size, right? If there's only so many people in the world who want something, it's going to be harder to grow it really quickly. And so felt really good about just, hey, what is the total quantity of contractors that are going to need to use this? How fast are we growing it right now? How much can we increase the revenue per customer over time? And it felt pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and interesting question for both of you. Like YC, you focus on two things. One is some vector of growth, and then raising money. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing here, you accomplished both of those really well at YC. Quick, rapid growth. You got a great round together. Mike, you relocated back to Calgary after. What concerns did you have leaving sort of that ecosystem where those are just two things you focus about: growth and raising money to continue that growth? Was there any concerns going back from the Valley to Calgary about mindset or the ecosystem support? And how have you adjusted for that? And then, Brendan, I know you've got a few investments up here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to do to help the Canadian founders? What do you have to do differently in Canada to help the Canadian founders be successful, if anything? So either of you can answer this question.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. We actually didn't leave Calgary. It was all remote.
Okay.
So
Oh, yes.
In a way, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. We were a bit maybe further along than the average YC company. So it allowed us to, continue to focus on the company while we were doing YC. But, I would say now, the ecosystem is very distributed now. It's like this layer on top of the earth, no matter where you are, really more so than being in Silicon Valley. But, obviously that is like the hub that everything flows from. All my emails are in Pacific time, and I'm not in Pacific time. It's just how it goes. It's the center of the tech world for sure. But you can really be anywhere, and it's really geographically distributed now. Even some of the biggest fundraisers out of YC were like geo arbitrage, which means I'm the Stripe of Pakistan or the DoorDash of Latin America. So it's really not. Basically, the new frontier is outside of Silicon Valley, I'd say.
And Brendan, what's with Mike? What advice did you have for him, or what advice do you have for Canadian founders? Because you've now prolific investor in the States, but if I'm correct, you have two in Calgary and one in Vancouver that I know of, and I'm sure.
Yeah, Yeah, we have 2 in Vancouver, 1 in Calgary, and we have a bunch of investors too in Calgary. So that was also nice to have that connectivity. But the number one thing is, having that hyper ambition, right, and getting on the same page there, and knowing that, and making sure that everybody's aligned with trying to build a public company in the next 6 or 7 years. And with that comes a lot of difficult things, right? Hiring really quickly, increasing the burden in order to do that, onboarding a lot of customers quickly. Obviously product needs to constantly be updated and improved upon. And so the biggest thing I can help them with is, what does it take? What are the next 5 to 7 years? What do they need to look like? What do the next 12 months need to look like? What's the growth rate required? What's the logo growth that needs to be there in order for them to go raise, $25-30 million, from us, and then great other co-investors, so that they can really own the market, right? Like, it's a battle in every single market. The goal is to win, to be dominant. And so just getting them in that right mindset is the number one thing. And I do think that there are founders that are, not in the Bay Area, that aren't exposed to people that have that mindset. And so making sure that everybody's on the same page there, I think, can be really helpful. And ultimately, I think great companies, especially in software, are going to be built, anywhere, just as Mike said. But it is nice, to have connectivity to that region already.
Yeah. And then, so it's, let's say it's the same challenges for every company. How do you, so let's take a step back, and you make the investment in YC. You guys decide to work together. You're a lead investor. What's the agreement, and how do you support how do you support the company's post investment, and what's that relationship like?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is, what is the pushing the hiring is just really important, right? Most founders are going from a place of, I'm just trying to survive. Maybe I've raised $1 or $2 million, and the runway is just 6 to 12 months. You're like, am I gonna have to go get a job? All that stuff is going through the founders' minds, and then we raise whatever the number is, $7 or $8 million here. And it's like a totally different shift, right? It's like, oh, wow, like, I can hire this level of person. I can hire this many salespeople or this many customer success people. And that's just really hard. It's like a big, shift. And I think some people it comes naturally, others it doesn't. And so getting them comfortable fairly quickly, because look, I mean, the best venture capital backed businesses, they raise every 7 to 8 months. Like, there's data on it. It says, like, look, that's the path. And so there isn't much time. And so that's the number one thing. And like, I'm not afraid to get into a spreadsheet and help them understand, the level of burns that are fine, or the level of burn that is fine, plus the capital efficiency and sales and marketing efficiency that, we can kind of sit between in order to grow quickly.
So Mike, are you going to be raising again soon? Is that what I'm hearing?
We'll see.
And so talk about that mind shift that Brendan talked about. Like,
that's so
you were talking about how people don't want to give you money, Calgary. You went through IC, and now you came out with a great round, probably one of the better rounds of the last batch. So how
biggest round in Calgary history, right,
biggest
Mike?
seed round in Alberta history.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. So
records.
Yeah.
So how have you switched your mindset, and how have you leaned on Brendan to actually make sure you're growing fast enough?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the big thing. That's the big value of Silicon Valley too. The mindset. Here, the mindset is, let's be realistic. Let's be conservative. And that's why we were afraid to give our whole vision. There, they wanted the whole vision. Give us everything. And so that was the value of being, in the Valley. And the same thing flows through. Well, if that's your big vision and you work backwards, that means you got to grow at this to get there. To be public in 5 years. So it's just done over and over and over again. And so it's like, this is the formula and this is how you do it. And that's really the value in being a part of the Valley, as opposed to basically any Canadian city, and any other American city too. It's the same. And that is the key thing that comes out of the Bay Area.
Yeah. And so, Alex, I spent 10 years in the Bay Area. My partner, Kellen, spent 8 years, half time in the Bay Area. And then my partner, Cam, spent 5 years there. And so I think having that mindset is really critical, especially when you're taking money from folks.
Yeah. And then, so other than getting the mindset right, what's been the biggest challenge over the last 3 to 4 months for you, Mike?
The biggest challenge, hiring.
Hiring. Oh, well,
Hiring the right people. Yeah,
that was almost a leading question in this environment. So, I assume you're hiring distributed.
fairly. Yeah, we're trying to hire as much as we can here. But yeah, we have no choice but to look everywhere.
So I might as well let you get it in right now. So for people listening to this, what roles are you hiring for?
Everything. So
Everything.
if you're a rock star coder, we want you. If you're a rock star salesperson, we want you. If you're kind of young and you want to get into it and you're really aggressive, we'll find something for you. We're basically hiring for everything. So
And where can they find the positions?
you can find them online. We're putting a careers page up now. It's part of the part of the new CostCertified. We're putting up a careers page so they can find us on the website or LinkedIn.
Great. And then let's take a step back and go back to that mindset of super growth, accelerating. Like, open to either of you, because what advice would you have for Canadian founders or early stage companies to get the right mindset to think about that and be ambitious, or not, or to share their ambition and not be too Canadian?
I think my yardstick would be if people aren't laughing at you, you're just not thinking big enough.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think that the reality is that, like, if you go down the path of raising money, you better be prepared to, go into this battle, right, and be hyper aggressive. And if you don't want to be that way, if you don't want that lifestyle, really, then you shouldn't raise money in the first place, and you should probably try to bootstrap something, because it just takes you down a path of a fairly difficult life. But like, Mike's going to embrace that, and Dave's going to embrace that, and like, they'll be prepared to run this company when it's at a huge scale. But some people don't want that responsibility, right? And so if you don't, then maybe try to figure out a different way about going about it. But the venture business, it's about scale and it's about moving really quickly, and it just requires some challenges.
So maybe to help set expectations for Canadians listening,
Mhm.
what does scale mean? So give us an example. Like, everyone can think of Spotify or Facebook, but Brendan, you're investing in around I guess late seed, early A, if I'm
Yeah.
correct. So what's
Mhm.
the scale you want to see then, and what's the ambition for like the next 18 months?
Yeah, right. Well, just to keep it simple, so with our fund, it's $185 million, and for every investment that we make, we want to have the ability to return that fund one time at least. And so, let's say we own 10% of a company, then after some dilution, that business needs to be at least $2 billion, at some point in time, hopefully within the next 6 to 7 years. And so when it comes to when we get involved, what it typically looks like is, companies are doing anywhere from, a couple $100,000 in revenue to $1 million. And within that first year, those businesses are usually growing 3 to 4x, in that time period. And then from there, they'll raise more capital, and then they'll grow another 3x after that. And then, they're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from 10 million ARR. And then these businesses have incredible leverage, and they can be really profitable if you need them to be. They can continue to grow quickly. They just got great operating leverage. And so that's sort of the stuff we're looking for.
And Mike, what's your advice?
My advice is start selling as soon as you can, and get that really early feedback. If it doesn't feel like your product is starting to break, I don't think you're not selling enough and people aren't using it enough, because you're not hearing feedback on all the nooks and crannies that you never thought of, forgot about. So sell early, and sell hard, and keep those customers as work your ass off to keep those customers. And that basically means that you're probably iterating and building out your product and making it better.
So I love it. It's another version of like, I wouldn't say it's launched too early. It's like launch and hopefully get enough customers that it breaks your product. Slightly
Pretty
different
much, yeah.
version. If people want to, actually, two last questions. One is, I like to take a step back and say, if your founders are looking for ideas, what's one company you'd like to see exist in the world? I love Mike and Brendan to come up with ideas.
I've got a few ideas.
Okay, Mike, let's hear it.
You can go first.
All right. I mean, I think it'd be great, if you're like if you're like someone who likes supplements, to have like one pill and you could customize it where you could say, oh, I want a little vitamin C, I want a little of this, little of that, and basically you get one pill. You don't have to have like 10 different things. So, I mean, if any health freaks out there, I think that'd be great. Or do you want it in a pill, or do you want it in a shake? It's like custom. You could even use CostCertified for this. Oh, I want a little bit of that. Yeah, you get your custom shake or your custom pill. Do you want protein?
It sounds like a skunk work project for one hire. You use your back end and just a different type of inputs.
Maybe.
Well, since I know the venture capital business the best out of any business category, I think that there should be basically a Y Combinator for people who want to start funds. And so the barriers to entry are really high. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time to raise an initial venture capital fund. But there are all these people globally that have really unique perspectives and have the potential to generate great returns. But right now, there's just too much friction. And so hopefully someone comes along and figures out how to get those people, access to capital so they can do what Alex and I do every day.
Great. I like both those ideas. And last question I have for you is, how can people get in touch with you or follow you? Is it a Twitter handle, an email account? What's the best way?
They can reach me, Brendan at fuse.vc. Feel free to give us a ring anytime. Shoot an email.
Cool. And Mike?
Mike at CostCertified.com.
Excellent. Mike and Brendan, thank you so much for your time. I found this conversation extremely interesting. I like the Calgary to YC to bring back ambition to Canada and also being the biggest seed round in Alberta. Hopefully some other founder beats you sometimes soon, not because I want
hope
you to
so
get beat,
too.
but I want we get more ambition in this country. Thank you
I
guys
agree.
so much for your time.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you've enjoyed today's show, be sure to subscribe to our newsletters where we highlight some amazing companies, people, and news from the tech ecosystem. Don't forget to stick around for networking. We'll be leaving it open until 1:30 so you can continue growing your network. Have a great weekend.